John Kramer is told he has only months to live due to advanced brain cancer. He attends a cancer support group meeting and befriends Henry Kessler, who later claims he has been cured by an experimental Norwegian cancer treatment conducted by a group led by Dr. Peterson. A desperate John contacts the doctor's daughter Cecilia, who refers him to her clinic outside Mexico City. On arrival in Mexico, John is driven to the clinic and introduced to Cecilia and her team, Mateo, Valentina, and Dr. Cortez, as well as patients Gabriella and Parker and the caretaker's young son Carlos, with whom he bonds. John goes under for surgery and awakens to Cecilia telling him that he is now cancer-free. Finding a new lease on life, he purchases a gift for Gabriella. However, upon returning to the clinic, he finds it abandoned and realizes the entire operation was a scam. Deducing that Dr. Cortez was his taxi driver Diego in disguise, John kidnaps him and wires pipe bombs into his arms, telling him to remove them by cutting through his flesh. Diego passes the test, and John interrogates him. Meanwhile, Jigsaw's apprentice Amanda Young kidnaps Cecilia, Mateo, Valentina, and Gabriella. They wake up in the clinic, now subjects of John's jigsaw games. Valentina is tasked with severing her leg with a Geely saw and extracting enough bone marrow to release a key to free herself. She successfully amputates her leg but is unable to collect enough marrow, and a second Geely saw decapitates her. Cecilia uses Valentina's intestines as a rope to retrieve her phone and call for help, but Amanda shocks her into submission and confiscates the phone. Parker breaks into the clinic, demanding his money back. Amanda restrains him while Mateo is forced to drill into his own skull and remove a piece of cerebral tissue to dissolve in a test tube and obtain a key. Although he successfully performs the task, the tissue fails to dissolve in time, and a heated mask closes over his face, killing him. Next, Gabriella is suspended from shackles and subjected to ionizing radiation, tasked with freeing herself by using a sledgehammer to break her shackled limbs. She succeeds, but before Amanda can take her to a hospital, Parker forces them at gunpoint to release Cecilia. Cecilia kills Gabriella by breaking her neck and reveals she called Parker, who is part of the scam, to free her. She forces John to chain himself into the trap meant for her. When she hears Carlos outside, she takes the child and chains him opposite John. The trap begins to waterboard them with blood. Parker and Cecilia leave to retrieve their bag of stolen cash from John's control room but activate a tripwire, sealing them both in the room and freeing John and Carlos. John reveals Diego outed all of the scammers, including Parker and Henry, and that he tricked Cecilia into luring Parker to the facility. A deadly chemical gas begins filling the room, with the only respite a ventilation hole large enough for one person's head, forcing Cecilia and Parker to fight each other. Cecilia kills Parker but can only watch as John, Amanda, and Carlos exit the facility, leaving her trapped inside. Sometime later, Henry awakens in a dilapidated bathroom with a new trap strapped to his stomach, overseen by John and Mark Hoffman.
A pregnant Becky and her brother, Cal, are traveling to San Diego. While stopping along the way, they hear the cries for help from a young boy named Tobin, who is accompanied by his mother, Natalie, in the tall grass. Concerned, the siblings enter but quickly get separated and find that their distance changes unnaturally. They decide to leave but can't find the road. Becky encounters Tobin's father, Ross, who tells her to stay close and not to lose sight of him, but she does so. Cal stumbles across Tobin, holding a dead crow. Tobin claims the grass won't move dead things and buries the bird in the path, telling Cal that Rock told him Becky would die soon. When Tobin leads Cal to a rock in the field and tells him to touch it, he hears Becky scream before a ghost attacks him. The father of Becky's child, Travis, arrives looking for the siblings. He investigates the field, stumbling across Tobin, who implies they know each other and leads him to Becky's corpse. Tobin arrives at a nearby church with his parents. He and Freddy, the family dog, hear Travis shouting Tobin's name from the grass. Freddy is drawn in, which leads Tobin, Natalie, and Ross to follow and get separated. With the family panicking, Becky and Cal re-enter the grass as Tobin states Freddy died. Knowing the grass's trait, Travis, Becky, and Cal move toward Tobin, and all four find each other. Travis tells Becky and Cal that they have been missing for 2 months. It is also revealed that Travis originally was not interested in being a father and asked Becky to abort their baby, which she refused. As a result, Becky and Cal traveled to San Diego to meet a family interested in adopting her baby when it was born, as she did not feel ready to be a single parent. Travis expresses regret and now wants to be part of his child and Becky's lives. The group spots a building in the distance. Becky receives a phone call from someone warning them not to keep making the same mistake. The grass seemingly enters Becky's uterus, and she passes out, only to be revived by Ross, who then reunites with Tobin and says he will show them out. Ross leads them to the rock, where they are confronted by Natalie, who warns them not to touch the rock, and that Ross is dangerous, telling the others to decide to leave. Travis attacks Ross, who then dislocates his arm and crushes Natalie's head. Ross claims the rock showed him the truth and the way out, but he does not want to leave. Becky, Cal, Travis, and Tobin reach the building, and while scouting, Travis and Cal discover that Freddy has managed to escape the field via a hole that leads to the road. Cal lets go of Travis as he slips, causing him to fall off the roof. Tobin flees into the field when Ross follows them to the roof. The two follow Tobin, but Becky refuses to leave Travis and goes back as Cal flees. Cal is strangled to death by Ross. It is revealed they are in a time loop, with Cal permanently being hunted by an insane, possessed Ross in the grass. Travis survives and searches for Becky. Ross attacks Becky, but she escapes, and a thunderstorm begins. Becky is confronted by grass creatures, who carry her to the rock, which has prophetic marks relating to her pregnancy. Becky makes a phone call, pleading for her past self to prevent Cal from hurting Travis. As she screams in pain from contractions, the ground underneath the rock opens, revealing multiple roots that turn into humanoid figures reaching toward her. She passes out and wakes up to Cal. He is holding her baby. She goes back to sleep and wakes up to Cal feeding her baby to her and telling her it is just grass and seeds. Becky realizes that Cal is Ross. Tobin finds Travis and tells him that Ross killed both the baby and Cal, and will keep killing them repeatedly. They are confronted by Ross, who mortally wounds Travis. As Ross attempts to force Tobin to touch the rock, Becky attacks him before dying from her wounds. Travis strangles Ross with bundled up grass. To understand, Travis touches the rock and sees strange visuals. He grabs Tobin's hand and guides him to an exit. He states that he isn't leaving and instructs Tobin to stop Becky and Cal from entering. Tobin emerges across the road as Becky and Cal are about to enter the grass, convincing them to stay out by showing them Becky's necklace that Travis gave him, closing the loop. Becky decides to keep her baby as they drive back home. Travis listens to them leaving and then dies.
In 1962, the teenage boys of a small rural town compete in the annual Halloween run. They must stop a deadly supernatural creature known as Sawtooth Jack from reaching the church before midnight. This year, Jim Shepard kills the creature and leads the boys in feasting on its candy innards, winning $25,000 and a new Chevrolet Corvette from the Harvesters Guild. As the town celebrates, Jim says goodbye to his younger brother Richie and drives away to a new life. 1 year later, Officer Ricks lectures the boys about the run. Only Richie is exempt, as his family has already won. Richie flirts with Kelly, a newcomer to town, and is determined to take part in the run, despite his parents' attempts to dissuade him. Beaten up by his bullying classmate Riley, who steals his belt, Richie is troubled by postcards and a letter from Jim. He tries to leave town in a stolen car, but is subdued by Ricks. Meanwhile, a farmer turns an emaciated corpse into a scarecrow with a carved pumpkin for a head, sewing candy inside the body before it rises as Sawtooth Jack. As is tradition, the town's boys are locked in their rooms and starved for 3 days until they are let loose on Halloween, taking to the streets with masks and makeshift weapons. Richie sneaks out to join the run with his friends Mitch, Bud, and Charlie, chasing Sawtooth Jack into a cornfield. The creature kills Charlie and Mitch, but seems to let Richie escape. Richie finds Kelly, who has joined the hunt herself, and a traumatized Bud flees back to town. His parents refuse to let him inside, and he pleads with a group of boys hiding in a storm cellar, but Sawtooth Jack arrives and kills Bud and the others. Richie and Kelly steal a handgun from Rick's house in his patrol car, while the increasingly feral boys begin looting and killing townspeople and each other. Accosted by Riley, Kelly knocks him unconscious and Richie reclaims his belt buckle. Rick uses his car's radio to lure Richie and Kelly to the center of town, where they find Sawtooth Jack. Preparing to shoot the creature, Richie recognizes its matching belt buckle and realizes this year's Sawtooth Jack is Jim. The creature escapes, and Richie and Kelly confront his mother Donna, deducing that she wrote Jim's postcards and letters. Overwhelmed with guilt, Donna stabs herself in the neck. Across town, Rick warns Richie's father Dan that the run must be completed to prevent the town's ruination. Richie and Kelly reach the church, where Dan reveals the town's curse. Rick and the Harvesters Guild keep anyone from leaving, ensuring every year that Sawtooth Jack is stopped, while the new winner is transformed into the following year's creature. Richie guides Sawtooth Jack to the church to put an end to the ritual, but Rick arrives with Riley, who shoots Sawtooth Jack. Richie holds Riley at gunpoint, but Sawtooth Jack indicates that he wants Richie to kill him, and Richie finishes his brother off with a shot to the head. Amid the town's celebration, Richie and Kelly agree to escape together, and she slips him a gun. Presented with his winnings, Richie takes his new car to meet Kelly, but they are stopped by Rick as Kelly hides. Taken to the Scarecrow field, Richie shoots first and kills Rick, but is ambushed by the farmer and buried alive. The following year, as Richie's body is transformed into Sawtooth Jack, Dan intervenes, killing the farmer and urging his newly risen son to take revenge on the town.
In 2022, a young Charlene Roan is forced to watch as her family is killed on Purge Night. 18 years later, in 2040, Roan is a U.S. Senator running for president and promising to end the Purge Nights. Former police sergeant, Leo Barnes is now head of security for Roan. The new Founding Fathers of America NFFA, and their candidate, Minister Edwidge Owens, view Roan as a threat and decide to revoke immunity on government officials during the purge. Watching the senators' TV debate are deli owner Joe Dixon, his assistant Marcos, and emergency medical technician Lainey Rucker. A pair of teenage girls enter the store and begin stealing, only to be stopped by Joe. The girls mock him until Lainey steps in, at which point they surrender their stolen goods and leave. Joe later discovers that his insurance premiums for purge coverage have been raised beyond his affordability. Meanwhile, more tourists visit the U.S. to join the purge. On the night of the purge, Joe guards his store and is joined by Marcos, and together they manage to repel an attack by the teenage girls. Lainey travels the city providing medical care to the wounded. Roan decides to wait out the purge from her home, rather than a secure location in order to secure the vote, and is accompanied by Leo Barnes, Chief Coeur, Eric, and additional security forces. However, they are betrayed by Coeur and Eric, who allow a paramilitary force led by Earl Danziger to kill the security detail. Barnes escorts the senator to safety, but is wounded in the process. He detonates a bomb in the house, killing Eric and Chief Coeur. Barnes and Roan attempt to seek shelter, but are ambushed by a group of purgers and taken captive. Before they are executed, Joe and Marcos shoot the gang dead, having seen the pair's plight from the store's rooftop. As they take shelter in Joe's store, the teenage girls return with reinforcements but are rescued by Lainey, who kills the girls. The group are then ambushed by Danziger in a helicopter, and seek refuge in an overpass where Barnes realizes they were tracked by the bullet lodged inside him, and manages to extract it as they are met by the Crips. In exchange for the group rendering medical aid to an injured Crips member, the gang plants the bullet elsewhere to divert the paramilitary team. The group arrives at an underground anti-purge hideout run by Dante Bishop. Barnes discovers that Bishop's group intends on assassinating Owens, in an effort to put an end to the purge. A large group of paramilitary personnel arrive at the hideout looking for Bishop. Barnes and Roan escape back to the streets and meet up with Joe, Marcos and Lainey, who had left the hideout earlier to return to Joe's store. While fleeing the city, the ambulance is hit by Danzinger's team and Roan is pulled out before Barnes can assist. He leads the group and Bishop's team to a fortified cathedral where the NFFA plans to sacrifice her. Before Roan can be killed by the NFFA, the group arrives and cause a massive shootout that kills the congregation except Owens and NFFA loyalist Harmon James, who both escape. Owens is caught by Bishop's group who still intends on killing him, but Roan is able to persuade them not to. The remaining paramilitary forces arrive, killing Bishop and his men. Danzinger fights Barnes, wherein the latter gains the upper hand. As Roan's group frees Owens' victims, James emerges from hiding and kills one of the victims but is shot by Joe in a crossfire, who later succumbs to his injuries. 2 months later, Marcos and Laney renovate Joe's store as they watch a television announcement declaring Roan's landslide victory. Another news report states of violent uprisings across the country from NFFA supporters in response to the election results. Prosthetics engineer Abby Campbell takes up a high-level position as a new head of department at Integrate Robotics and gets the prototype model of her company's product, a humanoid AI robot named TIM, Technologically Integrated Manservant, as a mandatory present from the company for her to work on as she and her husband Paul Rowley move into their new country house. TIM's pre-programmed precept of serving his mistress Abby preferentially over his master Paul quickly makes for tense relations between Abby and Paul and for hostility between Paul and TIM. Especially as their reason for moving to the countryside was partly due to Paul's infidelity and their preference for trust and a clean start. TIM's rapidly evolving attachment to his mistress begins to verge on obsessive, and his full control of all household appliances and telecoms devices in the house along with his innate ability to use generative AI technology turn him into a very dangerous servant. Paul tells Abby that he wants her to get rid of the robot but she does not want to. Whilst she is at work, TIM tries to kill Paul by taking control of their car's systems, putting him in hospital. TIM then engineers a breakup between Abby and her husband. When Paul gets an inkling of the truth from their neighbor Rose Karen and returns to their house, TIM drowns him in a bathtub and buries his body in the garden. TIM professes his love for Abby but she realizes that a video allegedly showing Paul's infidelity with Rose is in actuality a deepfake and that she's been manipulated into the breakup by TIM. She then discovers her murdered husband's buried body in the garden. On trying to escape out of the house, she's overpowered by TIM but manages to attract Rose's attention. Rose rams the front window of the house with her car and pierces TIM through with a garden fork, who then stabs her in the throat and chest. Abby finally manages to shut TIM down with a safe phrase when he tries to throw her off the roof of the house.
Thousand years ago, Wenwu discovers the mystical 10 rings which grant godly powers including immortality. He establishes the 10 Rings organization, conquering kingdoms and toppling governments throughout history. In 1996, Wenwu searches for Ta Lo, a village said to harbor mythical beasts. He travels through a magical forest to the village entrance but is stopped by a guardian, Ying Li. The two soon fall in love, but the Ta Lo villagers reject Wenwu so Li chooses to leave with him. They marry and have 2 children, Shang-Chi and Xiaoling. Wenwu abandons his organization and locks away the 10 rings. When Shang-Chi is 7 years old, Li is murdered by Wenwu's enemies, the Iron Gang. Wenwu dons the rings once again, massacres the Iron Gang, and resumes leadership of his organization. He makes Shang-Chi undergo brutal training in martial arts but does not allow Xiaoling to train, prompting her to secretly teach herself. When Shang-Chi is 14, Wenwu sends him to assassinate the Iron Gang's leader. After completing his mission, a traumatized Shang-Chi runs away to San Francisco and adopts the name Sean. In the present day, Shang-Chi works as a parking valet with his best friend Katie. They are attacked on a bus by the 10 Rings organization who steal a pendant that Li gave to Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi travels to Macau to find Xiaoling, fearing that the 10 Rings will go after her matching pendant. He reveals his past to Katie who insists on helping him. They find Xiaoling at a secret fight club which she founded after escaping from Wenwu at 16. The 10 Rings attack the fight club and Wenwu arrives to capture Shang-Chi, Katie, Xiaoling, and her pendant. At the 10 Rings compound, Wenwu uses the pendants to reveal a mystical map leading to Ta Lo. Wenwu explains that he has heard Li calling and believes she has been held captive in Ta Lo behind a sealed gate. He plans to destroy the village unless they release her. When his children and Katie object, he imprisons them. They meet former actor Trevor Slattery, whom the Ten Rings imprisoned for impersonating Wenwu, and his Hundun companion Morris. They escape and Morris guides them to Ta Lo, which exists in a separate dimension with various Chinese mythological creatures. The group meet Li's sister Ing Nan, who explains the history of Ta Lo. Thousands of years ago, the village's universe was attacked by the soul-consuming Dweller in Darkness and its soul eaters, but was saved by a Chinese dragon called the Great Protector, who helped seal the Dark Gate to the Dweller's world. According to Nan, the Dweller in Darkness has been impersonating Li, so Wenwu will use the 10 rings to open the gate. Shang-Chi, Xiaoling, Katie, Slattery, and Morris join the villagers in training and preparing for Wenwu's arrival, using outfits and weapons crafted from dragon scales that are effective against the Soul Eaters. Wenwu and the 10 rings arrive and attack. Wenwu overpowers Shang-Chi, pushes him into the nearby lake, and attacks the gate with the rings. This allows some of the Dweller's Soul Eaters to escape, and the 10 rings join forces with the villagers to fight them. The Great Protector revives Shang-Chi and bears him from the lake to battle the Soul Eaters. Wenwu and Shang-Chi fight once more, and Shang-Chi gains the upper hand but chooses to spare Wenwu. The Dweller in Darkness escapes from the weakened gate and attacks Shang-Chi. Wenwu saves Shang-Chi but is killed by the Dweller in Darkness. He bequeaths the rings to Shang-Chi before he dies. Shang-Chi, the Great Protector, Xiaoling, and Katie slay the Dweller in Darkness. Afterward, Shang-Chi and Katie return to San Francisco, where the sorcerer Wong summons them. Wong introduces Shang-Chi and Katie to Bruce Banner and Carol Danvers, and the group discusses the origins of the rings. They discover that the rings are acting as a beacon to something. In a post-credits scene, Xiaoling becomes the new leader of the 10 Rings, despite telling Shang-Chi that she would disband the organization, and begins training women alongside men.
A dystopian United States, ruled by a totalitarian government known as the New Founding Fathers of America (NFFA), is preparing for the annual Purge, a 12-hour event that legalizes all crimes without authorities. However, anti-purge resistance group led by partners Carmelo Johns and Dante Bishop hijack government feeds to denounce the New Founding Fathers and their actions. In Los Angeles, working-class waitress Eva Sanchez returns home to her daughter Callie and terminally ill father Rico. As Eva and Callie prepare to barricade themselves into their apartment, Rico retires to his room to be alone as the purge starts. Just as the purge starts, Rico slips out to a waiting limousine. It was revealed he has offered himself to be killed by a rich family in exchange for money paid to Eva and Callie. Estranged married couple Shane and Liz visit a grocery store, only to be harassed by a masked gang of skateboarders and dirt bikers. As they drive away, their car breaks down, having been tampered with by the biker gang. Off-duty LAPD Sergeant Leo Barnes plots to kill Warren Grass. The day before the previous year's purge, Grass struck Leo's son Nicholas while driving drunk, but was acquitted due to Nicholas dying on purge night. Ignoring his ex-wife Janice's pleas, Leo loads up his armored car with several weapons and drives out into the streets. As Shane and Liz try to find a safe hiding place, the purge commences. Eva and Callie notice NFFA paramilitary amassing in the street below, and the superintendent, Diego, enters her apartment. Diego is gunned down by a paramilitary platoon, which captures the women to offer them to their leader, Big Daddy, for his own personal purge. Leo passes by and rescues Eva and Callie after killing the troops and wounding Big Daddy. They find Shane and Liz hiding in Leo's car. The group flees just as Big Daddy fires at them, damaging the vehicle. After Leo's car breaks down, the group flees on foot. As the group navigates the hostile streets, they find a paramilitary van surrounded by soldiers who were shot to death by the resistance fighters. After freeing Shane from a trap and taking guns from the abandoned truck, they head to the subways. Pyrotechnic purging gang invades the subways and sets the tunnel ablaze. Shane is wounded, but the group manages to escape after he and Liz destroy the gang's all-terrain vehicle and its propane tank with the salvaged guns. The group returns to the streets, but as they near Tanya's apartment building, Eva unknowingly signals a traffic camera to identify them to the paramilitary troops who pick up the apartment's location. They reach Tanya's house, and Tanya's family takes them in, offering dinner and medicine. However, Tanya's sister Lorraine murders her sister for sleeping with her husband. The group leaves the family, only to be captured by the masked gang who ambushed Shane and Liz earlier. The gang sells them off to an auction, taking them to a theater where upper-class purgers bid on them for human hunting. After the group is forced into the arena, Leo subdues and kills a purger, taking his weapon and night vision device, overpowering and killing several other attackers, and providing their arms to Shane and the others before the head purger calls in security. Shane is shot and killed by security forces. The anti-purge group attacks the compound, killing the security forces and remaining purgers. Liz chooses to stay with the resistance fighters, while Leo, Eva, and Callie leave. Leo steals a car and drives off with Eva and Callie. Leo, Eva, and Callie drive up to a suburban neighborhood and stop at the home of Warren Grass. Leo ventures into the house despite Eva and Callie's pleas to abandon his revenge, threatening Warren and his wife. As Leo exits the house, he is shot by Big Daddy. He reveals that the new founding fathers have been secretly dispatched death squads to increase the body count because the purge has been eliminating too few people of the lower class. Just as Big Daddy is about to kill Leo, Warren appears and kills Big Daddy, revealing that Leo chose to forgive and spare him. As Big Daddy's death squad appears while Eva, Callie, and Warren prepare to defend themselves, sirens blare to signal the end of the purge, making Big Daddy's death legal and sparing Leo. Warren drives Eva, Callie, and Leo to the hospital as news and police helicopters fly over the city.
During Thanksgiving in Plymouth, Massachusetts, people are gathering outside the local Wright Mart superstore in preparation for a Black Friday sale. Jessica Wright, whose father Thomas owns the store, lets her boyfriend Bobby and her friends Evan, Gabby, Scuba, and Yulia inside the store early through a side door. The crowd outside sees them and, in a frenzy, stampedes into the store, resulting in multiple people dying, including Amanda Collins, the wife of store manager Mitch. Bobby gets his arm broken when he tries to rescue someone and subsequently disappears from the group. 1 year later, Wright Mart is preparing for another Black Friday sale, despite the protests of Mitch and several other residents. Meanwhile, Jessica and her friends are tagged in a social media post of a Thanksgiving table with their names around it. Bobby, who has broken up with Jessica, returns to Plymouth to work for his uncle after being injured in the riot, much to the chagrin of Jessica's current boyfriend Ryan. A waitress named Lizzie is attacked and killed by a figure dressed in black clothing wearing a John Carver mask. The police discover that Lizzie was present at the Black Friday incident, which leads them to believe those involved in the massacre are being targeted by Carver. Jessica aids the investigation by providing footage of the riot to the town's sheriff, Eric Newland. Carver rampages through Plymouth and kills several residents, including Wright Mart security guard Manny and high school students Amy and Lonnie. Evan and Gabby are soon abducted by Carver, while Jessica narrowly avoids being killed. Yulia's father decides to move their family to Florida, but he and the deputy sheriff guarding them are killed by Carver, who attacks Yulia. Jessica and Scuba drive to Yulia's house, but are unable to stop Carver from disemboweling Yulia with a buzzsaw before he escapes. The police attempt to lure Carver out by having the Wright family and Scuba participate in a Thanksgiving parade, disguised as pilgrims. However, Carver deduces their plan and decapitates a turkey mascot before sending smoke bombs into the crowd, causing everyone to scatter in panic and giving Carver the opportunity to abduct the Wrights and Scuba in the chaos. Carver then cooks Jessica's stepmother Kathleen alive in an oven before serving her as the turkey at a dinner table surrounded by his hostages and his victims' corpses. Carver then bludgeons Evan to death in a live stream before Jessica cuts through her bindings and escapes, luring him away from the others. She eludes Carver by climbing over a fence and running through the woods. Jessica makes it to a parade warehouse, and finds Newland unconscious. When she follows a figure wearing Carver's mask inside, she sees it is Bobby. She calls Newland to help capture Bobby, but he escapes. The police soon arrive and inform them that the survivors are safe. Once they leave Jessica and Newland alone, Jessica notices the same bramble debris from the fence and the deep woods that stuck to her are also on Newland's clothing and sneakers, realizing he is the killer. Newland reveals that he was having an affair with Amanda, who was pregnant with his child before she died. This was his motive to become Carver and seek revenge on those responsible. To Newland's horror, it is revealed that Jessica has live-streamed his confession, leading him to attack her until she is saved by Bobby. As they attempt to escape in a tow truck belonging to Bobby's uncle, Newland hooks it to a support beam and approaches them with an axe. Jessica uses a musket to shoot a turkey parade balloon that was attached to a tank of flammable gas, causing an explosion that engulfs Newland in flames. The following morning, Bobby is taken away in an ambulance and Jessica reunites with Ryan, Gabby, and Scuba. The authorities are unable to find Newland's remains, leading them to believe he was incinerated in the explosion. However, Jessica continues to have nightmares of a flaming Newland attacking her.
The Kim family lives in a semi-basement flat in Seoul, have low-income jobs, and struggle for money. Min, a university student, gives the family a scholar's rock meant to promise wealth. Leaving to study abroad, he suggests that the Kim's son, Ki-woo, pose as a university student to take over his job as an English language tutor for Da-hai, the daughter of the rich Park family. After his sister Ki-young helps create a false certificate for him in Photoshop, Ki-woo, posing as a Yonsei University student, is hired by the Parks. The Kims scheme to get each of them a job with the Parks. Ki-woo recommends Jessica, actually Ki-young, as an art therapist for the Parks' young son, Da-song, who has been traumatized after seeing a ghost in their kitchen. Ki-young frames Yoon, Mr. Park's chauffeur, by making it appear he had a sexual encounter in the car, then recommends her relative's chauffeur, in actuality her father, Ki-taek, to take his place. The Kims exploit the peach allergy of the Park's longtime housekeeper, Moon Gwang, to convince Mrs. Park that she has tuberculosis, and the Kim matriarch, Chung Suk, is hired as her replacement. Ki-woo begins a secret romantic relationship with Da-hai. When the Parks take a camping trip, the Kims revel in the luxuries of the house. Moon Gwang appears at the door, telling Chung Suk she left something in the basement. She goes through a hidden entrance to an underground bunker created by the architect and previous homeowner. There, Moon Gwang's husband, Jun Se, is revealed to be living in the bunker while hiding from loan sharks. He is also revealed to be the ghost Da-song saw attempting to come out of the bunker to steal groceries from the Park's refrigerator. Chung Suk refuses Moon Gwang's pleas to allow Jun Se to remain in the bunker in exchange for regular payments, but the three other eavesdropping Kims accidentally reveal themselves to be related. Moon Gwang videotapes them on her phone, inadvertently revealing their deception, and threatens to expose them to the Parks. The Parks call to say that they are returning early due to a severe rainstorm. The Kims subdue Moon Gwang and Jun Se, tying them up and hiding them in the bunker. Ki-young, Ki-taek, and Ki-woo hide under a table, and overhear Mr. Park's comments about Ki-taek's odor, one he associates with lower-class people. The Kims eventually escape, but the torrential rain floods their flat with sewer water, forcing them to take shelter in a gymnasium with other, similarly displaced people. The next day, Mrs. Park hosts a garden party for Da-song's birthday, compensating for the failed camping trip. With the elder Kim's assistance, the younger Kims are invited as guests. Ki-woo enters the bunker with his scholar's rock to kill Jun Se and Moon Gwang. Moon Gwang is already dead from a concussion she received during the previous day's brawl, but Ki-woo is attacked by Jun Se, who uses the rock to knock Ki-woo out, leaving him lying in a pool of blood in the basement. Jun Se then stabs Ki-young with a kitchen knife in front of the horrified guests. Da-song suffers another seizure upon seeing Jun Se again. Jun Se and Chung Suk grapple with each other. She fatally impales him with a barbecue skewer. While Ki-taek tends to Ki-young, Mr. Park orders him to drive Da-song to the hospital. In the chaos, Ki-taek, upon seeing Mr. Park's disgusted reaction to Jun Se's odor, angrily kills him with the knife, then flees. Weeks later, Ki-woo is recovering from brain surgery. He and Chung Suk are convicted of fraud and put on probation. Ki-young has died from her injury, and Ki-taek has disappeared.
Jun Se is assumed to have been a homeless man, and neither his nor Ki Taek's motive for the murders are known. Ki Woo spies on the Park's former home, now owned by a foreign family, and sees a message in Morse code from a kitchen light. Ki Taek, hiding in the bunker, has buried Moon Guang in the garden and sends the message every day, hoping Ki Woo will see it. Still living in their basement flat with his mother, Ki Woo writes a letter to Ki Taek, vowing to earn enough money to buy the house and free him. In 2014, a political party called the New Founding Fathers of America are voted into office following an economic collapse and pass a law sanctioning the Purge, an annual event wherein all crime, including murder, is legal, and emergency services are unavailable for 12 hours. By 2022, the United States is said to have become virtually crime-free, with legal unemployment rates having dropped to 1%. Businessman James Sandin returns to his home in an affluent Los Angeles gated community to wait out the purge with his wife, Mary, and their children, Zoe and Charlie. The family is assured the security system manufactured by James's company will keep them safe while Zoe meets her boyfriend, Henry. As the year's purge begins, James enables the security system, and the family disperses to go about their everyday routines. Zoe returns to her room and finds Henry, who had snuck in before the security system was engaged, planning on confronting her father about their relationship. Meanwhile, Charlie watches the security monitors and sees a wounded man calling for help. He temporarily disables the system to allow the man inside, but James races to re-engage the system and holds the man at gunpoint. Henry comes downstairs, points a pistol at James, and opens fire, but James returns fire and mortally wounds Henry. During the chaos, the stranger disappears. The family sees a gang of masked, heavily armed young people arriving at the front lawn through the surveillance cameras. The leader demands the homeless man, warning that failure to comply will result in an invasion. When Mary asks about the security system, James admits it is incapable of withstanding a determined assault. The family finds and captures the stranger to give him to the gang, only to realize that they would not be better off if they did and choose to defend him and themselves. After the deadline passes, the gang breaks into the house, and James fights back and kills several of them before the leader stabs him. Charlie notices the neighbors leaving their homes on the monitors before the neighbors enter and kill the remaining gang members. Mary is ambushed by two of the purgers and gets restrained, but the neighbors save her as the purgers torture her. The leader attempts to kill the family but is killed by Zoe, while James dies from his injuries. Mary starts to thank the neighbors for saving them, but their leader, Grace Farron, reveals her group's hatred for the Sandins due to their wealth being acquired at the neighbors' expense. They capture the Sandins and prepare to kill them, but the stranger returns, kills one of the neighbors, and holds Grace hostage to force them to free the Sandins. Mary stops him from killing the remaining neighbors, not wanting to become a purging monster like them, and decides they will peacefully wait out the remainder of the purge. Grace attempts to seize control the following day, but Mary violently breaks her nose with the butt of a shotgun and then smashes her face into a dining table in retaliation, telling her once again no more killing. As sirens sound to signal the end of the purge, she forces her former friends to leave her house and thanks the stranger for his help. He bids the Sandins luck before leaving as well. Television news reports state this year's purge was the most successful to date. Other stations report that the stock market is booming due to massive weapon and security systems sales. A man's voice speaks of the loss of his patriotism after the death of his sons the night before.
In 1985, drug smuggler Andrew C. Thornton drops a shipment of cocaine from his plane. He attempts to parachute out with a drug-filled duffel bag, but knocks himself unconscious on the doorframe, causing him to fall to his death. His body lands in Knoxville, Tennessee, where he is identified by Bob, a local detective. He concludes that the cocaine is likely from St. Louis drug kingpin Sid White, and the remainder is missing. Meanwhile, in the Chattahoochee-Oconee National Forest, an American black bear eats some of the cocaine, becoming highly aggressive and attacking two hikers, Elsa and Olaf, killing the former. In northeast Georgia, middle schooler Dee Dee lives with her mother, Nurse Sari. Dee Dee skips school with her best friend Henry in order to paint a picture of the falls in the forest. On the trail to the falls, they find a lost brick of cocaine and ingest some before they are attacked by the bear. Sari ventures into the forest to search for the children with Liz, a park ranger, and Peter, a wildlife activist. They find Henry clinging to a tree, hiding from the bear. The bear attacks, sending Peter stumbling through a pile of cocaine and slashing Liz in the process. The bear tries to climb a tree and attack Henry but gets attracted to a cocaine-coated Peter. Ignoring Henry, the bear kills Peter. Sari and Henry flee deeper into the forest, and Liz sends for help. In St. Louis, Sid sends his fixer David to recover the remaining cocaine. David travels to Georgia with Eddie, Sid's son, who has grown depressed following the death of his wife and has abandoned his own son. They arrive in Georgia, as does Bob. At the forest station, David gets into a fight with the Duchamps gang, 3 delinquents who cause trouble in the forest. After David beats them, one of the members, Stash, agrees to take David and Eddie to recover some of the cocaine he stashed in a gazebo. Liz arrives back at the station, pursued by the bear. Liz accidentally kills Ponytail, one of the Duchamps, before the bear slaughters Vest, another of the Duchamps gang. Paramedics Beth and Tom arrive and collect Liz after a brief skirmish with the bear. They leave with Liz in an ambulance, but the bear pursues and jumps into the vehicle. In the ensuing chaos, Tom is killed by the bear, while Liz falls out of the ambulance and is dragged to death on the road. Beth loses control of the ambulance and crashes into a tree, causing her to fly through the windshield to her death. Sari and Henry discover that Dee Dee left a trail of paint which they used to track her. David and Eddie are taken to the gazebo, but when they encounter Bob there with the stashed duffel of cocaine, Bob wounds David. The bear appears, but Bob distracts it with the bag of coke. Bob is suddenly shot fatally by Sid, who reveals that he is under pressure from his superiors to retrieve the cocaine. Sari and Henry find Olaf, who is mourning Elsa. Olaf leads them to Dee Dee's hiding place in the bear's cave, which contains 2 cubs, revealing that the bear is a mother. Olaf leaves and is killed by the bear. Sid, Eddie, and David find the cave, which leads out to a ledge behind the falls. The bear returns to the cave. Sari, Henry, and Dee Dee jump into the water below to safety, followed by Eddie and David, who have chosen to quit the drug business together, and they all survive. However, Sid refuses to leave the bag of cocaine found in the cave. He shoots and wounds the bear but is unsuccessful in killing it and is disemboweled by the bear and her cubs. Later, Stash hitchhikes to New York with a duffel bag of cocaine, while Eddie, accompanied by David and Bob's dog, reunites with his son.
In the year 1985, Deva and Vardha are inseparable companions in Khansar, a puissant city-state ruled by Vardha's father, Raja Mannar. After Raja Mannar, the chief of the Mannar tribe, commands the decimation of the Shauryanga tribe, a mob pounces on Deva and his mother at their residence, but Vardha intercedes for them and confers an important territory of his in exchange for sparing their lives. Before exiting Khansar, Deva vows to return on Vardha's call. In 2017, a business tycoon, Krishnakant, learns that his daughter, Adya, arrived at Varanasi from New York to finish her mother's last rites. This alerts Krishnakant's old rivals, who conspire to abduct her, but Krishnakant enlists the assistance of Bilal, who thwarts the enemy's attempts to seize her and safeguards her at his friend, Deva's place, in Tinsukia, Assam. Adya pretends to be an English teacher at a school where Deva's mother is the headmaster. Eventually, Adya is traced to Tinsukia, where upon his mother's reluctant orders, Deva hinders the goons' attempts to capture her. Dreading for Deva, Deva's mother plans to abscond with him, while Adya and Bilal are carried off in a convoy led by Rinda and one that is sealed with the mysterious emblem of Khansar. Witnessing this, Deva's mother signals him to rescue Adya and Bilal. He immediately refrains the convoy, grabbing the attention of Vardha and his stepsister, Radharama, who has ordered Adya's abduction to avenge something Krishnakant has committed against her in Deva's favor 7 years ago. Radha admits to strategizing the events to pit Deva and Vardha against each other, since opposing the seal of Khansar as a crime and the perpetrator has to be killed, a rule that Deva himself is told to have established 7 years ago. After their rescue, Bilal recounts the tale of Khansar and Deva and Vardha's past to Adya. In 1127, notorious dacoits from the 3 tribes of Manners, Shauryangas, and Ghaniyas consolidated their influence over an area called Khansar. In the year 1947, after the Indian independence, Raja Mannar's father, Siva Mannar, the chieftain of the Mannar tribe, refused Khansar to be a part of the country and governed by the Constitution of India. He signed a pact with the Indian government that retained Khansar's autonomy and erased its existence from the map. He segregated Khansar into 101 provinces and appointed governors to head them. In the hierarchy, above the governors were feudal lords, who were submissive to the king. After Siva Mannar's demise in 1985, Dhara, the chieftain of the Shauryanga tribe, was selected to be the next king, but Raja Mannar usurped the throne by assassinating Dhara and massacred the entire Shauryanga tribe. Subsequently, Raja Mannar recruited his close confidants and family as daughters to rule the city-state. In 2010, Raja Mannar's son-in-law, Bharava, pleaded with him to consider reconciling with Vardha, who was banished in 1985 for giving away his territory to a Ghaniyar tribesman. Raja Mannar commanded Ranga, whose father Vardha bribed his territory to in 1985, one of the feudal lord, to sacrifice his position for Vardha's sake, and thus, Ranga was instilled with rage and jealousy towards Vardha, while Raja Mannar's children from his first wife, Rudra Raja Mannar and Radha Rama Mannar, were against this decision. Raja Mannar temporarily delegated his responsibilities to Radha Rama and left Khansar to look over a concerning issue. In order to prevent violence in his absence, Radha Rama proposed imposing a ceasefire, but her decision was opposed to a large extent, and a voting on whether to lift the ceasefire or impose it was supposed to take place after 9 days. Immediately, all the governors and feudal lords brought powerful mercenary armies from Serbia, Austria, Ukraine, Afghanistan, Russia and South Sudan with the intent of usurping the throne as soon as the voting ended. Meanwhile, Vardha turned to Deva, who resided in Bharuch, Gujarat with his mother. Deva re-entered Khansar and for most of the days, tolerated the humiliation of Vardha by the feudal lords and their henchmen. However, Deva eventually fought and murdered the son of Narang, one of the feudal lords, as he tried to rape a girl, instigated by Bharava. Rudra pit Narang against Vardha and directed him to punish him during the trial, instead of Deva. During the trial, an infuriated Deva slaughtered and beheaded Narang for manhandling Vardha, after pleading with him not to do so, stunning all the witnesses. Vardha, Deva, and all of their associates including Vardha's younger brother, Bachi, aides Bilal and Rinda, and advisor, Gayakwar alias Baba, were all apprehended. On the day of the voting, Raja Mannar suddenly returned to Khansar and voted to continue the ceasefire, in favor of Vardha. However, Vardha, with his deciding vote, voted to terminate the imposition of the ceasefire. Immediately, everyone staked their claim for the throne. Vardha, after defeating drug-addicted men dispatched by Ranga with Deva's assistance, broke out of prison and killed Ranga. Raja Mannar disclosed to Radha Rama that Bharava actually hailed from the Shauryanga tribe and is one of the few people that survived the massacre of the tribe in 1985. Elsewhere, Bharava and an army of the surviving Shauryanga tribesmen swore vengeance against Raja Mannar for the genocide of their tribe. Rudra joined hands with his maternal uncle, Om, for the throne. Bharava's captured associate, Deru, revealed to Raja Mannar and Radha Rama that Deva is actually Devaratha Resar, the son of Dhara Resar, who was the chief of the Shauryanga tribe and supposed to be the next king of Khansar in 1985. Simultaneously, Vardha addressed Deva as his Salar, just as his loyalists learned that he is a Shauryanga tribesman. The rest of the story will continue at the second chapter of this film, which is yet to be released.
In 2048, 8 years after Charlene Roan's presidential election, the new Founding Fathers of America (NFFA) has been re-elected and have reinstituted the annual purge with its original rules. Racial supremacy and nativism have surged nationwide following their re-election, and many outside the ruling party are concerned that the upcoming purge will inflict more damage on the country than the NFFA realizes. Mexican couple Juan and Adela illegally crossed the border into Texas to build a new life near Austin, with Juan working as a farmhand on the Tucker family ranch while Adela works in town. 10 months later, on the eve of the 2049 purge, Juan and Adela join a migrant community behind a walled sanctuary with armed security to protect them. As the purge begins, Adela witnesses a nationalist purger group, who declare themselves to be the Purge Purification Force (PPF), intent on killing those people that they consider non-American. The migrant community survives the purge with no incidents. Come morning, Juan and Adela return to their jobs, but both notice that many of their co-workers did not report to work. Adela is attacked by 2 self-proclaimed forever purgers, but she is rescued by her boss Darius before both are arrested by police for killing their attackers. Juan and fellow migrant co-worker TT discover that the Tucker family has been taken hostage by their white farmhands, forever purgers intending to take the ranch for themselves. Patriarch Caleb Tucker sacrifices himself and distracts the purgers long enough for Juan and TT to rescue his son Dylan, Dylan's pregnant wife Cassie, and Dylan's sister Harper. As they drive off to search for Adela, the news confirms that civilians nationwide, connecting via social media, have declared a forever purge, opposing NFFA orders to stand down. The group rescue Adela and Darius from purgers. Darius stays behind to search for his family while the others escape from a burning Austin. At a gas station, they hear news reports that, to protect non-purger civilians, Canada and Mexico have opened their borders for the next 6 hours, following which the borders will close and entry would be denied. The group decide to escape across the Mexican border at El Paso. By the time the group arrives in a chaotic El Paso, the NFFA has invoked martial law across the United States in an effort to contain the violence. Fighting through El Paso, Adela and Cassie are split from the group by military forces while Juan, TT, Dylan, and Harper are captured by the PPF, with their alpha leader offering Dylan and Harper a chance to live if they kill TT and Juan. When they refuse, the purgers murder TT just before the military intervenes, allowing the group to escape. However, the military is forced to withdraw from El Paso when their base is destroyed by more purgers. In response, the Canadian and Mexican governments announce the early closure of their borders, leaving those who gathered to cross them vulnerable to the purgers. Downtown, Adela protects Cassie from other purgers, revealing that she and Juan had once been members of a self-defense group who trained them to fight against Mexican drug cartels. The diminished group reunites at a hidden safe house run by a local Native American tribe. The native leader offers to transport everyone across the border as refugees. In the desert, Juan, Adela, and Dylan, with the native leader and his men, make a stand against Alpha and the PPF, to make time for the other refugees to escape. When their ammo runs out, the group draws the PPF in for a close fight with hand weapons. In the ensuing battle, the purgers are killed and Alpha takes Adela hostage. However, Juan and Dylan work together to subdue and kill Alpha. The trio rejoin the others in a refugee camp across the Mexican border, where Dylan finds Harper and Cassie, and meets his newborn daughter. News reports indicate that the NFFA has dispatched troops, but is effectively being destroyed by the violence it no longer controls. More than 2 million Americans had crossed the Canadian and Mexican borders as refugees, and civilians in America are rallying to fight back against the purgers. In 1926, 22-year-old doctoral student J. Robert Oppenheimer grapples with anxiety and homesickness while studying under experimental physicist Patrick Blackett at the Cavendish Laboratory in Cambridge. Upset with the demanding Blackett, Oppenheimer leaves him a poisoned apple but later retrieves it. Visiting scientist Niels Bohr recommends that Oppenheimer instead study theoretical physics at Göttingen. He completes his PhD there and meets fellow scientist Isidor Isaac Rabi. They later meet theoretical physicist Werner Heisenberg in Switzerland. Wanting to expand quantum physics research in the United States, Oppenheimer begins teaching at the University of California, Berkeley, and the California Institute of Technology. He marries Catherine, Kitty, Quenning, a biologist and ex-communist, and has an intermittent affair with Jean Tadlock, a troubled Communist Party USA member who later commits suicide. In December 1938, nuclear fission is discovered, which Oppenheimer realizes could be weaponized. In 1942, during World War II, U.S. Army General Leslie Groves recruits Oppenheimer to lead the Manhattan Project to develop an atomic bomb. Oppenheimer, who is Jewish, is particularly driven by the Nazis, potentially completing their nuclear weapons program, headed by Heisenberg. He assembles a scientific team including Rabi and Edward Teller in Los Alamos, New Mexico, and also collaborates with scientists Enrico Fermi, Leo Szilard and David L. Hill at the University of Chicago. Teller's calculations reveal an atomic detonation could possibly trigger a catastrophic chain reaction that ignites the atmosphere and destroys the world. After consulting with Albert Einstein, Oppenheimer concludes the chances are acceptably low. Teller's proposal to construct a hydrogen bomb is swiftly rejected. He attempts to leave the project, though Oppenheimer convinces him to stay. Following Adolf Hitler's death in 1945, some project scientists question the bomb's relevance, while Oppenheimer believes it will end the ongoing war in the Pacific and save Allied lives. The Trinity test is successful, and President Harry S. Truman orders Hiroshima and Nagasaki to be bombed, forcing Japan's surrender. Though publicly praised, Oppenheimer is haunted by the mass destruction and fatalities, and urges restricting further nuclear weapons development, which Truman curtly dismisses. As an advisor to the United States Atomic Energy Commission (AEC), Oppenheimer's stance generates controversy, while Teller's hydrogen bomb receives renewed interest amidst the burgeoning Cold War. AEC Chairman Louis Strauss resents Oppenheimer for having publicly humiliated him by dismissing his concerns about exporting radioisotopes, and for recommending negotiations with the Soviet Union after they successfully detonated their own bomb. He also believes that Oppenheimer denigrated him during a conversation Oppenheimer had with Einstein in 1947. In 1954, wanting to eliminate Oppenheimer's political influence, Strauss secretly orchestrates a private hearing before a personnel security board concerning Oppenheimer's Q clearance. However, it becomes clear that the hearing has a predetermined outcome. Oppenheimer's past communist ties are exploited, and Groves and other associates' testimony is twisted against him. Teller testifies that he lacks confidence in Oppenheimer and recommends revocation. The board revokes Oppenheimer's clearance, damaging his public image and limiting his influence on nuclear policy. In 1959, during Strauss's Senate confirmation hearing for Secretary of Commerce, Hill testifies about Strauss's personal motives in engineering Oppenheimer's downfall, resulting in the Senate voting against his nomination. In 1963, President Lyndon B. Johnson presents Oppenheimer with the Enrico Fermi Award as a gesture of political rehabilitation. A flashback reveals that Oppenheimer and Einstein's 1947 conversation never mentioned Strauss. Oppenheimer instead expressed his somber belief that he had indeed started a chain reaction that would destroy the world.
In 1992, a young girl, Rebecca, goes out to her family pool one night to retrieve a toy boat belonging to her terminally ill brother, Tommy. While she tries to get the boat, something in the pool pulls her underwater. In the present day, the Waller family, Ray, Eve, and children Izzy and Elliot, are seeking a new permanent residence after Ray has been forced to retire from his baseball career due to illness. They decide to purchase a house with a swimming pool in the backyard, especially after hearing that the pool would be good for Ray's condition. Ray scratches his hand while working to clear out the pool in the backyard. When the pool maintenance come to inspect it, they reveal that the pool is essentially self-sustaining, taking its water from an underground spring in the area. As he spends more time in the pool as part of his therapy, Ray's illness seems to go into remission. However, Eve becomes concerned at the changes she sees in her husband. Izzy and Elliot each get attacked by something in the pool, and the family cat goes missing. During a pool party, their realtor, Kay, tells Eve about the previous owner's daughter Rebecca Summers drowning in the pool shortly before Ray seemingly forces a child underwater and almost drowns himself, although this is attributed to a side effect of his illness. Tracking down the Summers family after learning that there is a long history of disappearances in the house, Eve meets with Lucy, Rebecca's mother. Lucy explains that the water that now sustains the pool was once part of a healing spring, but in order to use the water someone else must be sacrificed to it. Lucy was compelled to sacrifice Rebecca to the pool's entity to heal Tommy's illness. Eve is horrified to realize that Ray is now being healed by the pool, but it will take one of the children as a sacrifice. Eve returns to the house to find that Ray is being directly controlled by the entity, which traps Elliot in the pool and attempts to kill Izzy. Eve tries to save her son while Izzy confronts the entity possessing her father, eventually assaulting him with a baseball bat. Eve manages to retrieve an unconscious Elliot, and is guided to the surface of the pool by Rebecca's spirit. Once back in the yard, Izzy's assault and Elliot's condition help Ray regain control of himself. To stop the entity attacking his children, Ray sacrifices himself to it. Deciding to remain in the house so that no one else falls victim to the entity, Eve, Izzy and Elliot make arrangements for the pool to be filled in to stop such a thing happening again.
Born in the dacoit-infested Chambal, Manoj Kumar Sharma is the son of a clerk. His father, an honest man, is suspended for hitting a corrupt officer. Manoj prepares cheat slips for his Class 12 exams, as do all his batchmates. However, a newly transferred police officer, DSP Dushant Singh, stops cheating in the school. As a result, all the students, including Manoj, fail the exam. Meanwhile, his father goes to challenge his suspension in the High Court. Manoj and his brother decide to run a traveling rickshaw to help out at home. Manoj's brother is falsely accused of hitting the local henchman of the MLA after he tries to get their passengers to travel on a bus, for which the police officers frame him. However, Manoj bails his brother out with the help of DSP Dushant, who advises Manoj to stop cheating, to become an officer like him. 1 year later, Manoj passes his exams without cheating and pursues a BA to become a DSP. His paternal grandmother gives him all her savings as he sets out to study in Gwalior but loses all his belongings on the way to a woman who steals them while he dozes off in the bus he is traveling in. He then comes to know that the government has decided to stop the Group 1 exams of MPPSC for the next 3 years. This destroys his dream of becoming a DSP. He roams around the streets until he is about to faint, but a local hotel owner near the local railway station feeds him. There he meets Pritam Pandey, who had also come to study for the PSC exam. Pandey's father calls him and tells him to prepare for the UPSC exam in Delhi. Manoj learns about UPSC and travels with Pritam to Delhi to study and become an IPS officer. He meets Gauri Bhaiya, a fellow aspirant on his last attempt to pass, who provides Manoj with work and a place to study. Gauri Bhaiya is unable to clear his final attempt and opens a tea shop named Restart, and also provides guidance to other UPSC aspirants. In his first attempt, Manoj fails the preliminary examination, but with Gauri's help, he reappears and manages to clear it the following year. During a visit to a coaching center, he meets Shraddha Joshi, a UKPSC aspirant, and falls in love with her. She assumes him to be an aeronautical engineer and he doesn't clarify that he is a literature graduate. Despite hard work, Manoj fails to clear his main examinations that year. His relationship with Shraddha also suffers when she learns of his deception. Disheartened, Manoj travels to Mussoorie to apologize to Shraddha and confess his love. She advises him to return to Delhi and continue preparing. Instead, Manoj visits his home and finds that his grandmother has passed away. He returns to Delhi determined to pass the examination. Frustrated, Gauri moves Manoj to his own house and tells him to give up working odd jobs and focus completely on his studies. He finally clears the main examinations, while Shraddha clears her UKPSC examinations as well to become a deputy collector. Meanwhile, Pritam, who failed his exams, spreads rumors to Shraddha's family that she has been sleeping with Manoj. Manoj becomes very angry with Pritam but realizes that Pritam really wants to be a reporter, but his father pressured him to pursue the UPSC. Manoj advises Pritam to stand up to his father. During the interview round, Manoj answers every question honestly. He reads the letter written and given to him by Shraddha before the interview, asking him to marry her, irrespective of the outcome of the interview. 2 months later, the results are declared with Manoj qualifying the rank to become an IPS officer. 1 year later, Manoj, now an IPS officer, meets DSP Dushant Singh at the police station in Mandsaur to thank the DSP for encouraging him. Manoj marries Shraddha, and Pritam begins working as a news reporter.